Well, a very good day to you. A very warm welcome to the KupoCon stream here to celebrate the launch of Final Fantasy VII Intergrade and the DLC Intermission. I hope you can hear me fine. If you cannot, please do let me know. We have two community managers moderating the chat today. Thank you to Alan and to Nikita for keeping the chat spoiler-free. Fair warning, we will be discussing the remake. There will be some spoilers, of course, but we won't be discussing the contents of the DLC in great detail. We don't want to spoil it for anybody. Obviously, it's come out in certain parts of the world, but not in all. So, as I said, we don't want to spoil it for you or for anyone else. So I'm really delighted to be joined by many of the cast today. But just before we get started, if you are joining us for the first time, or maybe you're watching this on replay, this was recorded on June 9th, I believe. Today is, unless I've slept in, and we are going to be discussing the Final Fantasy VII Intergrade game and the release of the DLC Intermission. We are KupoCon, the Final Fantasy fan event. We are made by fans, for fans, and we are not endorsed or affiliated with Square Enix, but we thank them for creating these wonderful games and also for not suing us for the great content that we produce for you. So we are going to talk a lot about the game and we're going to jump right into it. We don't want to waste any time, so I'm going to go ahead and wake up the microphones of our guests right now. And you are live, folks.
Hello.
Hello. I kind of wanted to sing like the intro ditty to Final Fantasy, and then pressure hit me and I forgot it entirely.
So
way to go.
Just a fair warning, Alex. We're still getting a bit of noise from your camera there. I'm not sure if it's an AC or a fan or something. Just a heads up. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us today. It's great to have you here. I'm sure you're all getting pretty excited for the launch of Intergrade and Intermission. Are you quite excited to see the fans?
Yeah.
It's
nice
been
to meet you guys.
Yeah, it's been super interesting to see like the hype building up around it, not just for the game itself, but like for what this might lead to. Because, people are like, oh, they're really incorporating everyone. Does that mean, we might get, and I'm speaking purely from a fan standpoint. I have no knowledge about any of this, but this knowledge of like, are they going to revisit Dirge of Cerberus? Are they going to revisit Crisis Core? Like, are we going to get like reboots or remasters of all of these as well? So it's like the Final Fantasy community in particular, the 7 community has really come alive in the last couple of months.
Yeah. So this is a great opportunity for everyone to introduce themselves. The cameras may not be organized in the same way for me as it is for you, so I'm just going to call you out and you take an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us who you're playing. So we'll start with David.
Hi, everyone. David Goldstein, and I play Billy Bob.
Okay.
Which is a name that a lot of people have made.
Yeah,
I'm the guy who looks like Axl Rose. Apparently,
we're definitely going to talk about how the name Billy Bob dropped and how that happened.
Sure. Very classic JRPG name.
Suzie.
Hello, I'm Suzie Yeung, and I'm the voice of Yuffie.
Thank you for being here today, Suzie. Appreciate it.
Thank
Erin?
you for having me.
Hi, I'm Erin Cottrell, and I play Scarlett. Good to see you guys.
And Daman?
Hi guys, I'm Daman Mills. I'm the voice of Weiss the Immaculate.
Myself. I don't play anybody, unfortunately, but I am your host today. My name is Alex. Dan?
Hey, I'm Dan Amerman, and I play Polk.
Alex?
Hey, I'm Alex Lee, and I play Sonon.
And Sean?
My name is Sean Chiplock, and I voice Nero the Sable. Not stable, mind you.
So now we have an idea of who you play and, well, what you represent in the game. We're going to talk about this highly anticipated title. Now, if you are watching this stream, you've just jumped into it and you have absolutely no idea what the remake is, then you probably want to do some research before watching this. But if you are excited for Intergrade and you don't know too much about it, there are a few things that I think are worth mentioning about the Intergrade drop. Really, the big talk about it is obviously the DLC, but there's a lot more to enjoy. The game is going to be available in high resolution with high resolution graphics. If you know about the door, then you know what I'm talking about. The door looks great now. There's a graphics mode, there's a performance mode which prioritizes smooth action at 60 frames per second, which in a action game like this makes a big difference. Photo mode, which is something that people have been asking for a very long time. The game is gorgeous, so to be able to capture some great shots, that's fantastic. And there's also some lots of PS5 extras, including the DualSense immersive controls, and there's the changing of the difficulty settings in classic mode, and there's optimized speeds, and the works. And I think so many people are excited for that.
I want a haptic feedback option where when I've got the VR headset on, if I get shocked by someone's attack, then the system actually sends an electrical shock through my body. I really need.
I feel like there would be some serious insurance issues with that one. You'd have players sat at home with headsets.
I bet you people would pay several $100s for the right to get Buster sorted across the chest by Cloud in real time.
I'm sure they would. There's
some do.
Yeah, I'm sure there are many services like that on OnlyFans as well. But that's probably not going to come into this game anytime soon. So let's jump right into it. We've had an opportunity for you to introduce yourselves. But what I think is really interesting to start with before we talk about this title in particular is your experience with Final Fantasy in general. So we'll start with Suzie, who voices Yuffie. Suzie, this is your first time voicing something in the Final Fantasy series, is it not?
I voiced in, I think, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. So that was the other thing, but Yuffie was the first one that I auditioned for and booked.
Okay. So, because I know that, I'm judging by the information I have here, so I know, Alex, you did Brave Exvius as well. You did some additional voices in the remake anyway. Daniel, is this your first experience with Final Fantasy?
Yeah, for me it is, for sure.
This is only my third game ever, so yes.
Right, gotcha.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, good for you. Daman, you did voice in Brave Exvius as well, correct?
Yeah, I voice Rain.
So we have quite a bit of the Brave Exvius cast coming into this. And then, Sean, you actually have done quite a bit. So you did Stiltskin in Crystal Chronicles.
I did. Oh my God! Thank you for bringing that up.
You're welcome. And you were in Chocobo Mystery Dungeon as well. And,
yes, that's Mayor Gale and Alexander.
Yep. And then you also did some work again in Brave Exvius as well.
I did. I was valeted in Brave Exvius, and then I also did manage to get to do some additional voices in the original of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Some more infamous than others, but you know what? I'm very glad that they have enjoyed what I've done and that they've allowed me to come back and that I've had more opportunities.
And Erin, you did voicing in Type 0, I think, as well.
I did.
That was quite some time ago now. Huh?
It was. And then I also did, as I'm going back, I did additional voices in
15?
Final Fantasy. Yes, 15,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Do any of you, by any chance, remember any of the lines that you would have done for additional voices, whether that was 15 or the remake? Do you remember anything? Because I remember I was talking to Ray Chase. Some of you may know Ray. And I was like, oh, Ray, you did some additional voices because he's obviously the lead in 15. I said, do you remember any of the lines you did? And he was like, oh, I think I did something like, oh no, the plate's falling down. And I was like, oh, okay.
What's the rating of this stream first? Is it PG-13? Is it
I'd
PG?
say you keep it PG. You can drop the odd shit, but that's about it.
Okay. So there's two that I distinctly remember. One is the old guy in one of the back alleys of the brothel town that's like, there's a secret route around here. But the one that everyone remembers for additional voices is there's a radio towards the very end of the first part of the game that you pick up, and it's Cloud pretends to be one of the soldiers that's hunting for them.
Right.
And he's like, no, we're good. It's all here. And I, as the guard, say, well, if you find those heads, take them out for me. So I like to tell people that I got paid, industry rate to call Cloud and his entire band a very bad word. So
right. So quite a few of you have experience with the remake, that's excellent, and generally with the series. And for those of you who are brand new to Final Fantasy, a very warm welcome to the community. The community is incredibly friendly. I can definitely speak for the KupoCon community. They're incredibly friendly folk. Certainly you won't have any issues on that front. But we've discussed about how you came into the series, and I feel like even though this is completely unrelated to Final Fantasy, but my daughter will not forgive me if I do not mention to Sean, my daughter Gwen, who is 6 and at the age of 5 completed Breath of the Wild by herself and was a huge fan of Rivali. So I know that's a huge. I mean, it's a wonderful game, and so my daughter would not appreciate if I didn't at least mention that. So anyway, back to Final Fantasy.
Thank you. Well, tell her he says hello.
I certainly will. So
can we talk about that instead? How you the game?
Yeah, we could do. We may lose some viewers. So let's talk about the DLC Intermission. Lots of excitement. Many people around the world are playing it right now. In fact, as I mentioned, in parts of Asia, Australia, it's already available. Many people will be downloading it in the hours ahead. Lots of excitement. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the characters. We're going to kind of talk about who they are and kind of the process behind it. So I guess one of the things that I always find very interesting to ask, the first question I always like to ask is, when did you go for this role? Most of the time, you would have saw a posting for it and you just went for an audition, or perhaps they came to you. But what kind of time frame were we looking at? How long ago was this when the opportunity came up for you? Maybe we'll start with you, Suzie.
Well, I got the audition right when I moved to LA. So literally the day after I settled down is when I received the email.
Wow.
So I read for that about a year ago. It was in June.
Quite a while ago then. Yeah. Is it kind of similar time frame for the rest of you, or someone got a different story? I know, David, I think you said that you were cast a little bit later, huh?
End of July, I got the audition.
Okay.
For it.
I don't honestly remember the timeline of the audition, and I don't mean that in a mean way, but it's like you get into a work process, and I imagine for many of us, it came through our agencies, and our agencies are responsible for sending us, up to dozens of auditions per week. So at the end of the day, it just becomes another part of the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
This was one of the first in-person sessions that I did during COVID quarantine time.
Right.
That is true.
Like, oh, they want me to come in? Like, what does that mean?
That is true.
And then I remember when I got there, they had in the studio, they had put a sign on one of the bathrooms with my name on it.
Yep.
And the bathroom was exclusively for me. And I felt
I was going to tell that story too. It was the women's bathroom.
See, I saw that as, preventative maintenance. They wanted all the bad stuff to come out the back so the good stuff could come out the front.
There you go. Perfect.
So if we picked up anything from the stream, it's that you all had your own toilet. Well, thank you. That's the exclusive that we required. There, the stream can end now.
It was the same toilet, just at different times.
We weren't all there at the same time.
They would only ever do one performer at a time in the whole studio. It was really interesting. I actually started recording for Scarlett the December before lockdown, because, we did everything for the original, and then coming back in, that was my very first foray into leaving my home studio and going in to work with somebody. And it was nice to have your own space. But I mean, talk about a COVID-friendly environment. Mm-hmm. You're in a glass bubble, really, for hours and hours at a time. And then you leave, you put your mask on. I don't even think there were snacks there. Did you guys have snacks? There were
no, it felt like I was waiting for David Attenborough to narrate, my skitterings around the studio. He goes to the bathroom during a brief break.
I don't know if it was the same for everybody else. I only saw one other the guy who greeted me and said, "Show me where the bathroom was," and show me the studio was. Yeah. Where we recorded was not even connected to where they were engineering and recording. There was a room with a mic. Behind the window was an empty room.
Yep.
Where normally the engineer would sit. I never saw another soul other than the guy who let me in.
Right. I would assume it was recorded at the same place as the remake. All I know is it's a studio that doesn't look like a studio. It's too nice to be a studio. People always comment how really nice and vibrant the walls are and how great it looks there. But I heard the guys working behind the scenes on the recordings and stuff were amazing. I've heard very, very good things about them. Alex, was it about the same for you? Were you cast around were you auditioning around the same time last June?
I auditioned around the same time that the sides for Yuffie went out, I believe. But for me, I was doing 2 rounds. So the first time I had heard about it, somebody else told me that they were the finalists for the role. And I was like, well, I guess I didn't get it. And then a week later, I got another audition for him again. And it was about a month or 2 of waiting to hear back. And on the very final day when they were supposed to be recording, I sent my agent an email and I'm like, hey, I know I didn't get this. Can you just check for me, just to give me some peace of mind?
Right.
And like 5 minutes later, they were like, no, you got it. You're coming in tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, okay.
That must have been nice.
Nice. It was like I already accepted my defeat. I
hear that a lot. I don't know if it's very
common.
Maybe you guys can, educate me. Is it quite common to wait 3-4 months to hear back on an audition?
It varies
for games.
wildly.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to talk over you.
I was just going to say for games it is. For, the commercial aspect of things, that it happens really quickly and you'll generally have this is going to record on this date, so your availability. But for games, especially if there's a code with it, you don't know what the game is. You have no idea when it's going to record anyway. So you just do it and you forget about it. And something comes down the pike later, oh, you booked this thing. It's like a gift. Honestly, I just do it and let it go.
And it can vary wildly. There was a game project for Guilty Gear. I auditioned and was notified of being selected less than 6 hours between that time frame. Wow. There's another game I can't, or not a game, but a different project that I can't talk about yet, that the time between when I auditioned and when they picked me was about 2 months. And then from when they picked me to when we actually started recording was another 8. So it goes a wide range all over the spectrum. It just depends on the production time. It depends on how ready they are to record your character. It depends on what outside factors there are. It's all over the place. Mm-hmm. There's no one set schedule when it comes to video games or any medium, to be specific. I think only promos or televised media are the only consistent thing where it's like, hey, you got booked. You're coming in 12 hours from now.
Fair.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Erin, did you go back into the studio when you were recording for Intermission, or was it just by chance that you recorded all that at the same time when you were doing the remake?
No, it was separate. And I didn't know that anything else was happening. I finished everything in December. I think it was just maybe 2 sessions. And then lockdown happened and I didn't know that I was coming back at all. In fact, I thought maybe I didn't know exactly what it was for. They really don't give you any information, is really what it is. You walk in kind of blind.
You probably assumed maybe part 2 was kicking up or something, right? That was probably the first thought. There were some tweets out there from VAs during peak COVID, and they were like, oh, I'm visiting my favorite pretzel store. And people were like, hold on, that pretzel store is very close to where they recorded last time. And then all the nut jobs are out there working out everything and putting it together. And then just by chance, 2 voice actors post the same booth. And then, everyone's like, the conspiracy theorists begin. And everybody goes, no, it's not what you think, but it was. So, a lot of excitement.
The pretzel store thing is kind of common. I've been to a studio where I went for lunch before, and I'm like, this place is good. I'm going to come back.
Well, there you go. So we've learned 3 things.
For this game, they probably connected us all because they're like, all those voice actors are using the same bathroom.
That's exactly it. I said we've got 3 things down. So 1, we know that you all had your own bathroom. 2, we know that you weren't all in the bathroom at the same time. So that's a big deal.
I'm starting to think they might have repurposed the bathrooms between sessions. Possibly. I don't think it was ever fully my bathroom the whole time.
But it is really, even though we were not in the bathroom at the same time, it is comforting to know that everyone on the Zoom call used the same bathroom.
Oh, how lovely.
I love deep.
That's deep, Dan.
That's what the voice acting community is all about.
I think it was you who came in before me, Dan. I could smell your lingering essence when
it was just,
anyway.
That's my way of
thanks for joining, Sean. Take care. Bye.
Yeah. Break a leg.
Listen. When you're blind and your mouth is covered, your other senses get heightened. All right. Don't blame me. Blame Nero.
I'm glad that you were able to come through a toilet. That's great. That's
where's
wonderful.
Nero's gag?
So look, let's take it one character at a time. Let's start with David. Let's start with Billy Bob. So the description for Billy Bob says, by far Avalanche's most experienced member, though you wouldn't know it from his laid-back attitude. You'll often find him knocking back a few in local bars, all while secretly gathering intelligence for the organization. When you went for the audition, did you know the name of the character that you were going for?
Yeah, I had a name and I had a picture.
Right.
So that's basically all I had to really work with. The description will give you some general idea, but you're rarely acting a description. You're trying to find the character's want and reason for doing things. So based off of the picture and the name, initially I thought this Southern accent, Billy Bob, generic, like that. Unfortunately, that's where my mind first went, but that's not. I gave him 2 reads. I gave him one doing that. That was my second take, but the first take was just the voice I ended up using, which was just a little. Actually, no, I'm going to take that back. I'm wrong. I did think he was Southern, but I then curveballed it, trying to stand out, and made him kind of like surfer sounding. Because he just seemed to have that laid back slacker type description and attitude in the picture. So I did one kind of in my voice and then one with a kind of a surfer affect to it. And then when I got it, I didn't know which one they picked. So that was actually the first question when I walked in the room is they were like, "Hey Dave, welcome." Thinking about, oh yeah, great. Quick question. Which version are we doing? Because no one ever told me.
Can you show us, or can you give us an example of the 2 versions?
Yeah, so his voice is basically just mine, just a little bit higher, just like this. But then, like the surfer dude, which pretty much every voice actor has this one, was like, yeah, Billy Bob, Yuffie, go do things. And so it was better than what I just did, hopefully, but that's the general sense of it.
So, I think one of the things that's been really, a lot of people have caught on to, and it's become a little bit of a comical joke, is Billy Bob. Nobody expected the name, but, Cloud, Tifa, Barrett, and you got Yuffie and Billy Bob. Did you, how familiar were you with the Final Fantasy series before you auditioned?
I mean, as a gamer, Final Fantasy. You can't be into video games and not know Final Fantasy. I wasn't an avid player. I think the first one I played was Final Fantasy X on the PS2. I didn't have a Nintendo console till the GameCube, and I didn't have a PS1 till much later. So those.
Well, 10's a good game to start with. 10's a solid target.
Yeah, and as I was talking about this with other friends of mine, I didn't have that friend who was really into it who could share with me, hey, you have to play this. I didn't have I think everybody in their life needs a nerd in their life to tell them, hey, if you're into games, you're into comic books, you're into this, you need to play this. I didn't have it, and I'm the worst for it. I didn't play my first Dungeons and Dragons game until last year, and I'm at 48 years old.
Right.
Because I didn't have that cool guy to say you should try this role-playing game. You should try Final Fantasy. So 10 was my first time playing it, but I didn't have the overall sense of, even though I saw the name on the audition, holy cow, and I knew about Remake, I didn't have that full sense of what it was. So before I recorded, I bought Remake and started playing it just to get a sense of the tone and the style of everything and of the acting style. But until I got booked in it, I wouldn't consider myself an avid.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing more about the character, right? Because all we've got really is a very little description, a little bit in the trailer, and a name. And the name is nothing to go on. So I'm really looking forward to experiencing the character firsthand.
Is that, I'm actually want to ask as a burgeoning fan, is a name like Billy Bob, where they have all these beautiful Yuffie, Tifa, Cloud, all these beautiful names. Do they normally throw in a Doug?
Yeah, there's Sid is a very common name that appears in the Final Fantasy series. I can't actually think, there's very few titles that don't have a Sid. But I just think Billy Bob is just such a, I don't know, it just rolls off the tongue. It was so unexpected. Do you know what I mean? Just between all the other names that they were announcing.
I mean, Alex, it really could just be the reverse version of, Western games that have a bunch of people with Western names, and then you get, one person who's named Hachi or Tsukomi or literally named, after the word for season or something like that.
I wonder how maybe the Asian market would have, in Japan and China, they would have looked at it and gone, Billy Bob would stand out a lot more, and you'd have a different thought to the name Billy Bob when you're here, right?
Billy Bob is the Banjo-Kazooie of the Final Fantasy universe.
Yeah.
I feel like Asian markets would look at Billy Bob and be like, "Oh, American name, just like everything else."
Yeah.
They wouldn't be able to tell a difference.
Gotcha.
But you got Weiss the Immaculate, Billy the Bob.
Billy the Bob.
Oh, I get it.
Would have been a different read. That's a different. Billy the Bob is a different read.
Okay.
There's Sonic OCs.
So what kind of voice would Billy the Bob have? That's the question.
Oh, that I have to think of.
Well, you come back
Billy
to
the
you
Bob.
come.
You know what? I would like to borrow Alex's voice for Billy the Bob.
Okay.
Okay.
Billy the Bob. I would just do Damon, my like best Damon impression.
Yeah.
Oh, Cloud.
See, that's how it goes.
So Alex,
Yuffie,
what's your real last
Yuffie,
name?
come
Because
to me.
le means the in like French. So Alex le what?
It's just le. That's it.
You are the
has
Alex.
a-
The
Le
Alex.
Alex.
It has a roof on it. There's an accent. That they don't
So
include in
look,
the
let's
American
move
language.
to let's move to Daman. Let's talk about Weiss. Information wise, so they again don't give too much. They say the fearsome figure is Weiss, also known as Weiss the Immaculate. He's the sadistic ruler of Shinra's secret underground research center, Deep Ground. Now, those who are familiar with the expanded universe of VII will have an idea of who this is, and those who've played, God, my brain's about to go, don't do this, that's the game I'm thinking of, Dirge of Cerberus, would have a knowledge. Going into the audition, did you know the name of the character?
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with the Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy in general.
Great.
I'm a big fan. So I was really happy to read on it. I read, I think I read in July is when I got the audition from my agent. And I did a callback because they were trying to make an adjustment with the voice. I think it was maybe an acting thing. And I didn't hear anything for like 3+ months. I think I recorded
to be pretty, like everyone says about that.
I recorded last October. And I went into the studio. And I had, so they had given some artwork of Weiss and some information. And I was like, I know what this is. Okay. So no pressure, right? But so I went in knowing kind of what he was about and everything. They wanted to keep the voice rather in a similar pocket of Sephiroth.
Right.
So it was kind of like lining up with him. I just had basic information about him. And I did my own research too. Because I had never played Dirge of Cerberus. I had played Crisis Core.
Now, did they ask you to pull from Dirge of Cerberus in any way? Did they use that as any kind of reference? No, it was just, this is like, did they give you any reference imagery or anything to work from?
Initially in the audition, I had, I think it was the render from Dirge of Cerberus for Weiss, and then I think a new render. And then they had, they given me a reference clip of where he was before, but I kind of did my own thing and kind of deviated from that and did what I felt was appropriate for him there.
Well, I think that's important because obviously this is a remake and there's no point in just copying what's already been done, right? There's no, you need to bring your own thing to it, or what's the point in doing it, right? So I can totally appreciate that.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. Well, I was going to say he's kind of like, he's a bad guy, right? But I don't want to make him too like campy or anything. So I tried to keep it as natural as I could with what we were given. And so it was crazy when I went in. I was like, I've never heard myself blink on a microphone before. This is crazy. It was so sensitive. We were so hot on the microphone. I was like, I can hear everything.
Oh, Damon, you're hot no matter where you are. Don't worry about
that.
My
God, you're too nice.
We moved from toilets to steam now. We seem to be moving. There seems to be steamy situations wherever we go, whether it's a bathroom or this call. Okay, so before Sean train wrecks us, let's move on. But I am curious. I am curious because you brought up about giving it your own vibe. Were any of you given the Japanese vocals to listen to?
We followed them too for the dubbing because it is technically dubbing.
Yeah.
I had done ADR before with like matching timing for like Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that. So it's basically they'll play the timing of the original Japanese file, and then you will come in and follow and give
try
like
and match it. Yeah,
you give like 3 different takes and try to match and give variants, and then they pick like their favorite, or they'll give you.
Where it gets a bit more complex is, if they have, if you're dubbing to a scene where the character's lip flaps are moving, because then not only do you have to match the emotional context, but even if the Japanese performance paces it a certain way, if it doesn't line up with the lip flaps, you have to make sure you match the lip flaps. Otherwise, people are going to notice that.
Right.
It's
unless,
tricky.
of course,
Go
ahead.
No, I was going to say this one was like grace. I mean, like half the time we didn't have footage, and half the time it was like grayscale, like no real true.
Half the time, Damon. Half the time, I never got footage.
I got like footage
Ever.
I think I
got
unfairly lucked out because my character's mouth was never seen. So
Yeah, you were lucky.
When it did, there was no.
And I don't think it was pretty common for the main remake cast. Erin, I don't think you would have had too much footage to look at when you were recording the original stuff for the remake. Huh? Like, I've spoke to pretty much everyone, and they said it was very rare they'd get footage.
Very rarely. Yeah. I saw a couple frames, a couple things, but then for the most part, you're just flying blind.
Okay, gotcha.
Sean, the thing about this game too is that we don't have to worry about lip flaps. We just have to worry about timing.
That's right. Because Square's
it's pretty uncommon. Square is next level where they actually animate the mouth.
That's right. I remember them mentioning that about Kingdom Hearts. Thank you for bringing that up.
I was trying to get
Which I imagine makes your job a fair bit easier. Huh?
Well, yeah.
Sorry about that, Damon. I wish I should have been listening.
No, it's okay.
Strike one.
Everything.
So, Suzie, let's talk about Yuffie. Those who are not familiar with the compilation of Seven, with things like Nero and Weiss, those who are familiar with the game in general will know Yuffie, the little bugger that keeps taking stuff from you every time you walk into that bloody forest. And you had an opportunity to breathe some life into this game. So going from the description that was given to us, Yuffie is a member of an elite corps of ninja operatives hailing from the land of Wutai. Self-assured and somewhat cocky, she presents herself as a ravishing beauty and one of the world's great materia hunters. So tell me, going in, did you know that it was Yuffie that you were going for?
Because they provided the image and the name, I was like, this is the girl. This is the baby. Yeah. So the little baby. She's just so cute. But I never had played Final Fantasy VII before. I was familiar through Final Fantasy X, which was also my first time playing Final Fantasy.
It's a great one to start with because it's the first time they had voice acting, right? So that's,
absolutely. So I had my first exposure to the franchise there. And from there, I knew of Yuffie through, Kingdom Hearts and Advent Children. So I was like, whoa, who is this girl? Like, she's so cool. So that was the extent to which I knew Yuffie. So I did recognize her when I received the sides.
Now, I know you've been playing the game on Twitch, so you're probably a heck of a lot more familiar with the Seven than you were probably going in, so that's great. Very exciting role to have. Practically, in fairness, it's the lead role of the DLC, and it's a character that everyone will recognize from the original, which is really exciting. We'll talk about the fan reaction and the content of the game in a short moment. But let's go over to you, Erin. Let's talk about Scarlett. So we had already been introduced to Scarlett in the remake, but I'll still read off the description. So Scarlett is Shinra's director of advanced weaponry and in charge of the very materia that Wutai wants to steal. So you go ahead and audition for the remake. Again, at the time, did you know that it was Scarlett that you were auditioning for?
No, I had no idea. Generally, I will get a sense of a character and just kind of sit in my booth and do a thing and let it come through, and that's it. I didn't research anything. I just put it out there. And then
you fit the role wonderfully. Okay. We've had an opportunity to see Scarlett quite a bit from the remake, and as you've already said, it was probably quite the shock to be called back. So what do you remember roughly? Because if I recall, the recordings of the remake were done around the Christmas period time of whenever that was. So then it was 4 or 5 months before you got the call back to do the intermission stuff, or did it? Yeah, it would have been about that.
Yeah, so it was like November, December of 2019 when we initially did that. And then I came back, I feel like, it was maybe, it was like once a month for maybe August, September, October, November. I remember actually doing my final recording on election night.
Right.
So I couldn't hear any of the American, we here in the States were like sitting like this, and I had my headphones on freaking out because I couldn't see anything, which was a blessing and a curse.
If we hear frustration in your voice acting or anxiety, then we'll know what that was about. So
there's a little of that. Yeah, we were all, we would finish, we would cut something and then like all frantically look at our phones to see what the results were and then go back and back and forth in that bubble. So yeah, but it was once a month. So it was like I would go in and then sometimes we would redo things, or, there's just a whole bunch more content that needed to be, presented, and then we did it.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about how the voice acting that you've done previously and the new stuff you would have done will differ. Obviously different, in the remake it was a lot of dialogue, but we've got some battle stuff in this one, so we'll get to that shortly. But we're just going to finish going around everybody. Dan, let's talk about Polk. So going from the description that we were given, Avalanche's youngest member, Polk, is sort of the younger brother of the team and loved and teased accordingly. He's passionate about Fort Condor, a board game that's taken the Undercity by storm. So again, the same question to you. Did you have a name going in for the part?
No, I didn't even know what it was that I was auditioning for. I don't think I found out that it was Final Fantasy until I was probably like halfway through my recording. Okay. And they were, and I was like, hey, by the way, what is this? And they were like, oh, it's Final Fantasy. And oh, yeah, I've heard of that. That's pretty cool. Yeah. But yeah, I just didn't really have any idea because they code name a lot of things that are known properties. But yeah, like everyone else was saying, you just audition for a bunch of stuff every day. And you never really know you kind of just forget about it because you're just doing too many auditions to really be kind of like keeping your fingers crossed on any individual thing. And then a few months go by and you go like, oh, they want me to come in. That's cool. And then you do it. And then you find every once in a while you've heard of the thing. And then that is like a special treat. But most days you go in for a session and you're just like, you don't necessarily know the property or the thing that it is. And you hope that it finds an audience. So it's cool when you go into something knowing that it already has a built-in audience of people that care about it.
Yeah. So you said, as you said, you didn't know even the title, let alone the character. Do you remember if they gave you any kind of direction of what they wanted you to present in that character?
Well, I think I remember that in the audition they said it was like the kind of like younger brother of the group, and so I was like, okay, it's like a young guy, probably a little bit more innocent than some of the more like warrior type people. So I just was like, all right, I'll maybe try to play into that. And then when you go in for the session, basically you just listen back to the audition that you gave. And unless you did multiple takes, like David was saying, then you just kind of go like, all right, well, let me see if I can try to do this, and then trust that they'll direct you. But so many voice acting sessions, so much of it's a commitment exercise. It's almost like you're doing an improv game where you're not usually getting the whole script in advance. You're not preparing it the way that you would like if you were doing a movie or if you were doing a play or something where you're just rehearsing. You really show up, they put the lines on the screen and they go, okay, this part you're screaming because you're on fire. And you go, okay. And then you just do that. And then they go, now this next part is if you don't catch on fire. And so you're just celebrating, and then you go, okay. And you have to just kind of be willing to roll with whatever they have you do, but through the prism of the character. So I just was trying to be like a happy-go-lucky kind of guy who wants to be liked by these much cooler warrior kind of people. And then just kind of, try to commit as hard as I can to whatever situation they give it.
Gotcha. Okay, so Alex, let's move on to you. Let's talk about Sonon. From the description, another operative from Wu Tai, Sonon trained directly under Yuffie's father. He bore witness to the devastation caused to his country by its war with Shinra and has a deep-seated resentment for the company. So, again, did you know the part or the game when you were going in for this?
I was aware of the game. In fact, I had been a big fan of the remake. But regarding the part, when I first saw him, I was like, I don't recognize this name. Yeah. So I did about like an hour of Googling, and I'm like, all right, well, nothing came up. Yeah. So he must be a new character. And, with big titles like these where they cast like really incredible talent, when you submit an audition, you're just like, I'm probably not going to get it, but, you never know. So you always got to try. And when I got the part, I was, of course, thrilled. I was over the moon. And when we came in, that's when we started to really establish what the character was and what he was all about. Because from the auditions alone, I feel like the ideas weren't entirely there yet on what they wanted him to sound like. So we kind of had to figure that out in the recording booth on the day of.
It must be a little bit nerve-wracking to have a character like Sonon who's not known, but actually, from what we've seen so far, holds quite a vital part. Like, you look like you and Yuffie are going to be leading us forward in this DLC. Were you quite nervous to breathe life into a character in such a, highly anticipated DLC?
No, not at all. The thing about voicing a character that's entirely brand new is that you're not held to any standard, or you're not held to a previous interpretation of the character. And for me, as an actor, that is freeing, and that's all I could possibly want. I don't want my work to be compared or to be nitpicked to hell by a previous interpretation of a role, which I know that Suzie and Daman probably, and Sean probably will have a lot of, struggle with in terms of like, what should I do? How can I, best re-represent this character for the modern audience? And I know a lot of the remake casts have the same issue, but for me, I was like, he's new. He's, I can do whatever, I want with him. And that's kind of the best part for me, is, it's already hard enough to act with nothing given to you. So it's way better to be able to do it on your own terms than it is to constantly have this doubt and pressure in your mind about something else.
No, that makes sense. So, Sean, let's move to you. Last but not least. No questions about toilets, so don't worry. So, going based on the information that is provided by Square, they say Nero is a member of the Spitz, an elite unit within Shinra's secret military group Deep Ground, the younger brother of Weiss the Immaculate. He practically worships his incarcerated sibling. Again, it's a part that has been played before. There's a character that some will be familiar with, but not many. Right. Not many people have played the compilation. Did you know about the part going in, or was it a bit of a shock?
Most of my life has been vague, indirect interactions with Final Fantasy VII, whether it was friends that were big fans or like going to the cafes, listening to the music, but I had never actually played the game myself. So I was well aware of Weiss and Nero and, this whole cast of characters, but this was my first time, really diving in and getting to know them. As Daman mentioned previously, there was that question of, how much do I want to try and honor the original, or is this a case where now it's a different experience, it's a different representation. I need to be able to take and make the character my own. And in the case of Nero, it was a very delicate balance because, Nero is described as a character that, as you said, worships his brother. Is that worship out of adoration, or is it out of like a misplaced sense of idolatry? He also is someone who embraces this curse or the darkness, this dark power that he's been given. Does he embrace it because he wants to control what he sees as something that could easily control him? Or is he just insane? And so it was very difficult at times to make sure I didn't lean too hard one way or the other, because part of Nero's interest as a character is what's the word? His enigmatic nature, the fact that you can't quite figure him out, and that's what makes him so intimidating. So it was a good challenge. I really appreciated the chance to have to challenge myself with something like that.
And we didn't actually get to see Nero until a little bit later, once the announcement of Intermission had come round and everyone was like, oh, holy shit, what's this? Right. You came in the final trailer, I think it was, or close to the final trailer. So it was like,
very correct.
So it was, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. We are going to take a momentary break in a second, and I know that Alex will not be returning after that break, so I just want to focus a little bit of time with Alex, if I may. Alex, this may seem like a weird compliment, I'm not sure if it is, but I'm going to go with it anyway. You have a great voice. Like, you seem like you were born for voice acting.
Thank you.
The part is a unique part. As you said, it's a part that hasn't been done before, so you were able to breathe your own life into it. Were you given any directions of, I know you said to start with they didn't really know what they wanted, but did they, as it progressed, did they say, this is what we need you to do? Or did you really just deliver and then that's what it became? Like, I know that you can only use the Japanese version, you know, to a degree, right? Because, I mean, they're two different two different worlds, let's face it.
Yeah. With the Japanese version of Final Fantasy, it tends to be a lot more campy and overdramatic, as with a lot of Japanese media tends to be. And that's only based on how our languages sound. But for me, I was a huge fan of the Japanese seiyuu, Yoshimasa Hosoya, and I took a lot of inspiration from his prior works and stuff like that to prepare for the role. And when I went into record, it was a lot. We spent like the first 2 days really trying to nail down what this character is all about. And that's why I feel like, I haven't seen the game yet, but I feel like my performance towards the end of the game is probably going to be way better than the intro, like 2 hours. But
Right.
One of the good things about working on this project was that I got to work with a friend of mine, Kirk Thorne. And Kirk and I, this is our, I don't know, third or fourth time working together. And he knows me so well. He knows what I can do in the booth. And this has got to be like one of the best recording experiences I've had to date, because he just reads my mind. A lot of times when you're thrown into a recording situation, you give 3 takes and you're giving the rest of the hour to just sit there and be like, was that good or was that really shitty? Man, I hope they let me redo this. But with Kirk, it's like the moment I do a shitty take, he's like, hey buddy, that was really shitty. You want to do that again? And I'm like, thank you, Kirk. Or we had a lot of instances where it was like, I did a line and I'm like,
Wow.
Man, the first take of that was really like the first take. I really like the beginning half of that. And the last take, I like the bottom half of that. But I don't want to do another take and waste this time. And then Kirk would be like, can you do the first bit from the first take and the last one from the last take? And I'm like, God damn, you know me so well. And you don't get a lot of interactions like that in the booth.
Fair.
So that's why I found this one to be very, very special.
I had
to me.
heard really good things about the team and bringing in everything together. So look,
Excellent.
before we take a break, and as I said, Alex, I know that you have to skip off, but what I have here is a little bit of dialogue that we have taken from the trailer, so there's no spoilers. It has Scarlet, Sonon, and Yuffie in it, and I was hoping that maybe we could just try and reenact that moment. We had great success with this in the last one, so no pressure. But we'll give it a shot. It's very, very short. And I'm just posting it in the chat right there now, so you can have a quick look. It's only like maybe 6 or 7 lines. And I thought we'd give it a shot. And then we're going to take a little break there. So anyway.
Can I just say while they look over the lines, because this may be the last time I get to hang out with Alex.
Sure.
If they need to physically take your voice and turn it into like a blanket or like a set or like a duvet cover even. Like I want to put your voice over my body at night because I know I would sleep
Thank you.
soundly.
I'd also like to thank David because I thought my compliment was weird to begin with your nice voice thing. But no, he just yeah, thanks David. Thanks very much.
You can set a weird bar. I will get over it as best I can.
Just wait for Sean to crush it with his, stinky bathroom jokes and we're there.
Wow.
As he tends to do. Sean would be like, I would like to wear your voice in a blanket while I'm taking a big poop.
There you go, folks. Thanks for watching. Apologies.
Wow, Sean, way to make it.
It
way
is
to ruin
free content.
You know
Come
what?
on,
Yes.
Sean.
Okay.
Come on, Sean.
Cool. Yep. Don't
I
worry about
expect
it.
that from Daniel, but not from you, Sean.
All right.
What can I say?
Let's give this a shot then. So we're gonna.
I am not seeing anything in the chat. Am I?
It should be in the chat that you have for Zoom here. Do you see it?
No.
Yeah. There's nothing there.
Oh, you know what? I know why. It's because I posted it to the waiting room.
Yeah, you were too busy making those poop jokes.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. Okay, there you go. Try that. Can you see that now? Sorry.
Yes.
My
yes.
apologies. You can go back to your blanket for a little bit if you want now. Feel like you can pull that off? It's very, very short.
Okay.
Feeling confident?
Sure.
You good with this, Alex?
Yeah, sounds good.
Let's give it a whirl.
All ready?
No pressure.
No pressure. At long last, Wutai's finest deigned to join us.
It was Scarlet, director of advanced weaponry. It was one of her machines that killed Melfi.
Allow me to present the latest innovation in Shinra battle armor.
What the?
This will be a memory to cherish for the rest of your lives. All 30 seconds of them.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
Nailed it, Suzie.
Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing.
I had to
there is an
put
award
so much
in
of
your
myself
future.
in there.
Well, we'll be talking more about some of the lines that you have soon, Suzie. So don't think the only thing you're here for is the what the. But as I said, we are going to take a 7-minute break. That's 7 minutes. And we're going to take a 7-minute break and we'll be back. And again, Alex, thank you very much for joining us. Folks, we will be right back there. Be right back.
Right.
So we are back. Thank you very much for waiting that 7 minutes to give us all an opportunity to use our personal and private bathrooms. And then we all got a drink as well, I think. I had crazy dry mouth from talking for the last hour. But anyway, we're back here. And I thank everyone for staying with us. If you are watching the stream and you are enjoying it, we are providing the stream to you for free. I hope it is worth your time. And if you enjoy the work that we do, we would love your support. We do have an online store, kupo.shop, which we have lots of cool things, one of which I know if I wake up the microphones. See, Suzie, do you have any real materia in real life? Because we need to get you some. We're going to have to send you some. So like we have like these little KupoCon bags that have materia in, and then they go on like a light up stand. So they light up, right? So I have to send you some of these.
I'm excited.
And for those of you who have been watching and listening to the music during the stream, it does come from Melodies of Midgar, which is a special album by Pontus Holmgren that we made just for us. And it's actually free as a digital download if you spend $25 or more in our store up until Sunday. So if you've enjoyed the music you've listened to on the breaks, do check that out as well. There's my plugging done. We shall move on to the good stuff. So let's continue talking about Intermission and Intergrade, which for those in Europe is literally just hours away. Very exciting. We have lots of questions from people who are watching. So if you do have a question and you're watching right now, obviously if you're watching this on replay, you can ask, but you're not going to get an answer. But if you are watching live, do pop your question in the chat and we will do our best to pick it up. But we do have quite a few questions here already. So we talked about the process of getting the role. We talked about getting in and doing the auditions. But here we are now. Let's just roll the clocks back a few months to when that first trailer dropped. And I think when the first trailer dropped, I don't think the names dropped at the same time. I felt like the press release came a little bit later. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know how that feels. Like, I know many of you have done many a role and, you know, being announced for a job is probably, you know, it's just, you're used to it. David, you did mention that this is your third role, right?
Yeah, this is all a brand new, everything about this is brand new for me.
So how is it for you then to see your name drop on a title like this?
Well, it's especially important because a couple days earlier, a game that I had been booked on in November, and the record date kept getting pushed. Like, we're going to do December, no, we're going to do in January. Okay. And they locked it in for April. And then a week before I was supposed to record it, they wrote me and said, oh, we've eliminated the character. Sorry. So I was about as down as I've been in a long time. And then 2 days later, the press release came out. And it was very, very much a needed shot in the arm to kind of like, there's the bad, now here's the good.
Right.
So, and I've never been like, I may be the oldest person in this room, but by far the least, like everyone here is a veteran, and I'm jealous of all your IMDb pages and everything. But so for me, I'm still learning how this process goes, and especially with a title as important as this one. Mm-hmm. Like when the press release came out, then it was like, oh, I'm in a big deal, and my really good friend is a Final Fantasy fanatic, and he's like, he's been trying. I've been trying to like talk it down. Like, it's just, I'm in a game. I know. He's like, you don't understand. You're in Final Fantasy. Like, things are gonna be a little bit different for you a little bit, or like, it's a big deal that you're in this. And I don't know if everyone else.
A lot of voice actors don't realize, those who aren't overly familiar with the Final Fantasy series and other series, that when you get a role like this, it's a huge deal. Like the first time I took John Bentley to a KupoCon, he's like, I'm just Barrett, it's not a big deal. The poor guy was swamped. Like, and he's like, and it was like, holy shit, like my life is changing like before my eyes, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure everyone, and people mention, like, when you audition for something, even if you know it is a big deal, you audition and then you forget about it, because if you harp on it, you can drive yourself crazy. Mm-hmm. And while I was recording it, I knew it was Final Fantasy. I didn't know necessarily what part, like, is it going to be part 2? Is it going to be, I had no idea what it was for. But I just focused on the character, and then I was done. I didn't think about it. It's out of my control. That's it. I don't want to think about it. But then when the press release came out, then was like, oh, this is going to be cool. And I've been enjoying the ride ever since it came out.
What about the rest of you? What was it like when your names dropped? Now, Erin, obviously your name was already out there, but for the rest of you, it was fresh press, fresh names. Everyone was seeing this. You know, somebody tell me how the reaction was.
Crazy. That's honestly, I mean, I've been doing VO for a while, and this was probably the most like well received, like big things that I've dropped that like kind of got the most attention. And for me, it's been kind of a surreal experience because I mean, I played Remake during early COVID, and I loved it. I was just I was still in Texas. Then I moved to LA not long after, and then I got the audition for it not long after. So it kind of like has all fallen in a very surreal kind of path. It's just been kind of crazy, and I love Final Fantasy. I like Sephiroth's my favorite character, and to be kind of that same kind of area of like Shinra and bad guy-esque with like silver hair is so awesome, and I'm really honored to be involved. Yeah.
It's, you know, I can rarely ever relax until like I've seen what the audience thinks. Cause you know, I in the booth, you want to impress the director, you want to give your best performance. But at the end of the day, our careers exist because there is a demand for English voices. You know, if companies thought that they could just put out the game with only Japanese voices or not even any voices and save on costs, they do that. So it is ultimately the audience's feedback that I take, you know, that I really cherish, because they're the ones that are spending the money, playing the game, you know, that we were hired to help entertain. So, you know, the trailer comes out and I hear myself and I go, okay, cool, that's awesome. But what does everybody else think? And I kind of, once I know that, you know, I didn't do a horrible job and that the community enjoys what they heard, that's when I can finally go, oh, okay, yeah.
It's really good to see people so invested. Like, you know, I've heard from David, I've heard from Daman, I've heard from Sean, and you're all really invested.
Right.
I have met some voice actors that, quite frankly, I'll say it, don't give a shit. And, you know, it's just go in, do your job, get your money, and not interested with the fans and this is...
I don't see that.
This is
different. I don't see that a lot in this group. I see all of my castmates here on this call, and I understand that we're all people who grew up with these franchises. We're passionate folks who like watched anime and played video games, and we're like, these are so cool, and we're enraptured by the idea of getting to be a part of those worlds. Many of us didn't stop gaming once we started voicing for games. If anything, now we're like, I want to play this game because I'm in it, and I want to hear how everybody else sounds. And I've always held that when you get passionate people together in one space, that's when all the really cool stuff happens, because there's a genuine love and affection and commitment.
Well, I think that's why the remake works as well as it does. And I've said this before, is I feel like everyone's really passionate who's on the cast, who they're really invested in the part, hence why it's obviously everyone's very talented, but you need to be invested in the project. And everyone is so invested. And I think that's why it's been such a huge success. Suzie, what about you seeing the fan reaction? Yuffie, it's a big one.
Yeah, I was super nervous because Yuffie was actually one of the first characters I did. I mean, prior to Yuffie, I only had like 3-4 credits to my name or something like that. So I don't think I had that kind of experience before. So I just didn't know how to react. I think I was in the middle of a session when the names dropped and everything, and then I was like, I need 5 minutes to react to this.
Well, I think you're like, sometimes when you hear a character for the first time, if the voice matches the character really well, it just feels completely natural. And for me, Yuffie, it just works. Like there was no, it just flows. And a credit to you, congratulations. And I know that following you on Twitter these past few months, you've been dropping games that you're in left, right, and center. So you've certainly got some credits to your name now. So congratulations for all those.
Thank you.
Dan, what about you?
Well, I didn't know that I was even going to be in the press release thing, because for me, I think I probably did my whole part in a 4-hour session. So for me, it wasn't something that I was working on over the course of weeks or months or anything like that. So I knew that I was in this game, and I knew I was excited to be in it, but I didn't, you do lots of things. You're not always in the press release. Like a lot of times you're just like, oh yeah, like I say a couple of whatever. So when I was in the press release, my buddy, who some of you guys might know is another voice actor, this guy, Max Middleman. And
Max was on the last call.
Oh, he was? Okay.
Yeah.
So he texted me and he was like, are you in Final Fantasy? And I'm like, yeah, I think. And he's like, well, it's all over Twitter. You should like get on Twitter and like do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks to him, I was like, oh, okay. Cause I just am not, I don't go on social media that often.
Right.
I don't know if I honestly wouldn't have even seen it if like someone had not pointed it out to me. And then when I did, then I was like, oh, this is really cool. Cause now people are like messaging me, or people who, the cool thing about fans of games is like, if they know you from a different thing, and then they're like, oh, you're in this thing now too. That's always exciting for people who are not just fans of the game, but become interested in voice actors or just the process of that, and learning more about what the kind of life of an actor is. And so I always like when people message me about that stuff, who kind of are aware of multiple things that a person does. But yeah, then once you kind of start engaging with that community, it was really cool to just see how excited people were, and to also know people like Max or just other people from other versions of the game or other iterations. And it seems almost like doing a Final Fantasy game is a bit of like a rite of passage, I feel like, for a voice actor. It's like you're kind of like, before you do Final Fantasy, and now you're like, oh yeah, you're part of the Final Fantasy universe. So it's pretty neat.
Like I've said on quite a few occasions, I'm slightly biased. I run a Final Fantasy fan event, but it's a huge series. It's very important. And I'm looking at you, David. Don't say it. Okay. I find that the code name of this project is very much a good representation of how serious they take this project, and how serious they know that the remake is very important. I think that's the way I would understand why they, unless it was just randomly picked. But I think Square know that the fans really care for 7. As I mentioned in the last stream, it's taken, years for the remake to come around. It was highly speculated, highly, wanted, and now it's here. It's highly appreciated. So to be in a game like this is huge. It's massive. So congratulations to all of you for being in such a massive title. And it's really kind of exciting to see where it goes. As I said, Erin, I'm not sure if your name went out in the press release. I guess it wouldn't have. There was no need for it to, because you would have already been in there, and to have that callback. But going back to when your name was attached to the character when the remake was first announced, and that huge buzz, that must have been quite something.
I have to be honest. I'm similar to Dan in that I'm not like super active on Twitter. For me, the biggest payoff is my brothers are gigantic gamers as well,
Right.
And so to have my youngest brother be like, "Oh my god!" like that reaction is the best for me, and it's also really different because I'm a film and TV actor and had done that for so long. So people really only know me from like a lot of Hallmark movies and playing, women in the 1800s. As this is like my identity is wrapped up in people's minds in such a different way.
I assure you, Scarlett's not 1800s, but yeah.
No, and the joy to play a character like that, or like, in Dishonored, Delilah Cooper Smith, like all of these crazy, like deep, witchy, like darker characters for me is a joy, because it's so different from these like maternal, totally different characters I've been able to play visually.
Right.
So it's like it's a gift. So yeah, anytime anybody gravitates toward this as opposed to like an 1880s prairie movie, I'm like, yeah, this is also a part of who I am, and I love being able to explore that. And I should, I should like delve into it more online. I feel like it's something I would love to connect with fans.
I think that the great thing about Twitter in particular is the reach. You can so easily connect with a fan in something you can't do through Facebook without seeming creepy. And so I think Twitter it's generally, my experiences with Twitter have been wonderful. There is some crazies out there, but you have to shut those off. Unfortunately, some people take the fandom a little bit too seriously. But the general, it's just wonderful to be able to see that reaction. And I know that when I was talking to Cody Christian, who plays Cloud, he had not been very active on social media. And I said, look, I want to make sure, are you seeing the feedback that you're getting? Because I think it's really important as an actor that you're seeing how much fans are enjoying your portrayal. And he said that, that he'd seen it loud and clear. And I think that it's definitely worth venturing and looking to see, because I think it's always, I personally, I find it like, if the stream goes well and people say, oh, the stream was good, I find that rewarding. If they say it went shit, I block them. So it is a rewarding experience.
It's good to check in. It's good to check in with that feeling, everyone. It's good. It's important not to get like lost that.
Yeah.
But it's important, like, because if you're someone who comes from like a theater background or any sort of live performance, you obviously get that in the moment when people applaud or they, you hear them laugh or something. Yeah. It's like an audible reaction. But with if you're doing like film and TV, you get less than that. You maybe just have the crew or, other cast members. But then with voice acting, it's even less, because you don't even get the other cast members who you're not having a conversation with anyone. You're just doing only your part. So you don't even have that feeling of like, after the scene, your scene partner goes like, I think that was really good. Instead, you're just like, all right, well, I guess we'll find out. Yeah. So it's nice that months later you could be like, oh yeah, people are appreciating this. And it makes it more meaningful.
Totally.
Although I was told, after tomorrow, don't Google your name.
Oh, what?
Just in case.
No, fine.
Things are
Billy the Bob will go down as the best.
The Bob.
Yeah, it's like
that was a missed opportunity. I'm gonna say it.
Billy Bob. We could call it Billy the Bob the Bomb. Billy Bob Bomb. Like Billy Bob is the bomb. Like we'll come up with something. We'll come up with something. Look, we have a lot of questions from people who are watching. People who are who submitted questions previously. The number one question that is flying in faster than any other question is, what is the name of Damon's cat? I will let you take. I will let you take that.
He's so famous. His name is Riku. He's named after a Kingdom Hearts character because he's got like gray, like silver.
You said hair. You typically call him Ricky, huh?
I call him Ricky or Rick, or we change his name all the time.
Very affectionate.
He's so needy. Look at him. He's ridiculous. I love him because he'll howl outside of the room if I lock him out.
See, if I did that to my cat, he'd scratch my face off without a doubt.
He just likes being this close all the time.
What breed is he?
I don't know.
Has a
rascal.
Almost looks like a bit of a leopard
cat,
print in the back there. It's quite nice.
Not all of us have cats, but I saw someone in chat ask, what would we name our chocobos if we had
Literally,
one?
that's my next question. Jonathan
there you
says,
go.
Yeah,
Let's go.
Sean, you're spoiling it. Go back to your toilets.
He left as soon as we brought up chocobos.
Jonathan asks, to all the cast, what would you name your chocobo? If you had a chocobo, what would you name it?
I have always named my female birds in Pokemon Scarlet, so
really?
I just think it's a good name. I really have. I really have. Either
like,
Scarlet, either Scarlet or Tempest. So it would probably determine if the Chocobo had more of a fiery personality, it would be Tempest, just because it's a little bit more aggressive sounding. But if they were more like doting and loving, then it would be Scarlet.
All right.
Feel free to throw out a name.
Because Erin, your character's very doting and loving. They're not at all.
I would personally name. I'm personally going to name mine Billy the Bob. That's what I would name my chocobo.
Come on,
Billy the Bob.
Come on.
No, Alex. Billy the Bow, the Chocobo. Billy the Bow.
Billy the Bow, the Chocobo.
Nice.
Either Chocobo the Feathery, because Weiss the Immaculate, or Roger. I don't know.
Were you the one that came up with Billy the Bob as well? Like, it seems like those two.
Might have been.
Yeah, that's so clever.
I name most of my gaming profiles are named Winston Zedmore, who is the fourth Ghostbuster. So I'd probably name it Winston.
Right. Anybody else?
I'm a fan of like human names for animals, for pets, like Dave or Brian. I guess that's like a Family Guy recall. But yeah, there's something very, I don't know, leveling about having a dog named Kevin or something like that, or an animal. Kevin. Yeah.
I can't recall if this was a question from a specific person or not, but it's been playing on my mind, and it's always an interesting question. Is there anything about the character that you portray that you can relate to, that is kind of a representation of you? Anything that you have in, hopefully on the Nero Weiss side, maybe hopefully not, but is there anything that you have in common with your character?
I have silver hair now.
Enough.
He hates everybody except his immediate family members.
I do not.
No.
I don't.
Nero.
Oh.
What about you, Suzie? Do you have anything in common with Yuffie?
I say for sure, personality-wise, we're kind of similar in that she's really like playful. She likes to just tease people.
I was gonna say it, and I gotta say it now because I'm thinking it. I was gonna say, but Yuffie can't button up her pants. It's a common joke that people take. I'm assuming you're capable.
Yeah.
Really? Do it first right now. No, don't.
Again, not that kind
I
of
don't know weirdness. No more toilets.
Yeah, no, she's super spunky, and like the more I know somebody, the more I poke fun at them, and I think she does that a lot.
Very similar.
So very playful character.
What about the rest of you?
That's a tricky one for me to answer. So yes, I don't really have her wardrobe. That would be something I'd probably get arrested for if I go to pick my child up from school in some of Scarlett's clothes. Yeah, I think I posted something actually on Instagram about how like all of my pent up pandemic vibes got to be channeled through Scarlett and her kind of like dominatrix-esque being, and how just being home in my little space here has not really offered itself to being the powerful I don't know.
This stream took a dark vibe, didn't it? Like, there's been some weird stuff. We've been talking dominatrix. We've been talking weird toilet things. Like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened.
That's where, that's if I'm to identify with her, that's the element of it. But not in my day-to-day life. But it's nice to play on a regular basis. I think we all have all the multifaceted bits about us. So it's fun to play.
Here's a great question. I think we lost Dan for a second, but he's back there. Yeah, we got him. So here's a great question from somebody on Twitter. I'm going to try and say this. I think it's Kavita. It may just be a handle name, but they said, your character walks into Tifa's bar, Seventh Heaven. What drink do they order? So your character walks into the bar. What drink do they order? I don't know how old Polk's meant to be. I don't know if he's at drinking age, is he?
Yeah, I think he's probably ordering like some apple juice or something.
Apple juice.
Yeah.
Probably cactuar juice or something.
I think Billy Bob lives the high life. I think he would go with the champagne of beers and Miller High Life.
Fair.
I think Scarlett would have an absinthe. There would be some sort of absinthe drink for her.
Damon, did you already pick your drink? Because I think I found one.
What? Tell me.
It's called Adios, MFer.
Yeah. Whatever that is, yes. Vices. I was gonna say that or just straight vodka. I don't know.
Straight vodka sounds like a good pick, but the cocktail in which I will not repeat, I will look up the ingredients and we'll get back to you on that.
Dude, I'm gonna post the image link in chat. You should check this out, Damon. It looks good.
Oh yes, let's see. I'm curious.
Okay, read off what's in the ingredients.
Oh yeah, that too. Mm-hmm. That's blue. It's so blue. I love that.
Calls for sweet and sour mix. I like that.
Sweet and sour. That's not. I don't think Vice is very sweet.
No, he's definitely the sour hand.
So he's sour.
I'm sweet towards my brother. You're sour.
Yes, Nero is. I think his only sweet side is towards Nero.
Now,
I think everything else.
Talking of Nero, we don't have too much in the way of lines that we can go on right now, but I thought we could have a moment to try and reenact another one. This one again. I apologize to Suzie for the absurdly short line. Very, very short. This should be quite easy to do.
We gotta put the mask on.
Somebody.
How dare you? How dare you stand in my way? Now, let the games begin.
What in the?
Now, Let the games begin.
Did you have to wear something over your face when you did it, or did they add that in?
They have post-production effects that they
I wasn't
can put
sure
on
if
to
they
make
were
it
like,
sound.
if they just go, just screw it. It's COVID. Wear the mask anyway.
Wear the mask in the booth. It's fine.
And then let's give this one a shot. Now, this one is just Yuffie, and it's the opening dialogue from the DLC. So you should be familiar with this one. Look familiar?
Yeah.
Feel confident?
I think it was the first few lines that I did.
It would be, yeah.
Well, guys, your girl finally made it to Midgar. My name is Yuffie, materia hunter and elite special forces operative for the new Wutai government. I have orders to infiltrate Shinra headquarters and steal their ultimate materia, to prove to our common enemy that Wutai is not to be trifled with. Members of Avalanche, with your full support, we got this.
Very nice.
You're so good.
And
you are so good.
For those who have been following the content, they actually did release the first 15 minutes of the DLC in which that section is from. Mm-hmm. So it's quite exciting. Well, look, we're at time. Time flew by today. But I just wanted to say thank you very much for being here today and being able to celebrate the launch of this title with me and with the hundreds of fans that are watching and the thousands that will watch this on replay in the days ahead. It's quite exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing how the fans react over the next 24 hours. I'll be picking up my copy in the morning and I'll be working my way through that. So quite exciting. How many of you will be giving it a shot? Don't
have a 5.
PS5s are very hard to find. They are very tough.
I got one.
Hey.
I got one. Yeah, I accidentally, so I had wanted to replay the game just anyway, and then I accidentally overwrote my old file. So I'm replaying.
To be honest
the
with
whole
you, though,
thing.
I think I would, when I go to replay tomorrow, I'm going to play it through fresh. No
gotcha.
save, no nothing. Just start again. Because while I did take my time, I just feel like, if you're going to play a DLC, which is basically halfway through the game, you might as well just start fresher. So.
Yeah, I've been playing, so I have most of it completed anyway.
Gotcha.
So I was going to wrap up before.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I think I'm chapter 15. I don't know.
Well, before I let you go, I am going to once again do a plug, so forgive me, but I hope you have enjoyed the stream, folks. And if you do, please do check out the link to our store below. We rely solely on the sales from our store and from the support of our patrons. As soon as COVID has pissed off, we will return to physical events, but it's always wonderful to be able to do these things, and we also like to be able to not just give back to the community, but we like to be able to give to our voice actors. We offer honorariums to everyone. It's important that we keep the world spinning. I know a few people have been asking about this, which was a book that we released a couple of years ago, which is called The Nibelheim Incident, which is based on Final Fantasy VII. We actually gave these away free during our last stream. I think we gave away 250 copies. And we do have about a dozen left. These will be popped up in the store. All you have to do is pay for the shipping, so they'll appear momentarily. And something that sold out in an instant, which was Melodies of Midgar on vinyl, which is one of the coolest things I think we've ever produced. All 250 copies were sold, but we had about 5 or 6 cancellations. So those 5 or 6 copies will be in the store again after this stream. That's kupo.shop. And the list of things in our store is endless. I've already showed you the materia. And then we have prints of all the characters and stuff. So we have lots of things. I'll send you guys a goodie bag, actually. And please, if you can support us, it is appreciated, because without that, we're not able to do really cool things like this and hear the stories of how everyone got their own unique bathroom. So I feel like it's worth the money. And as I've already mentioned, it does include a wonderful download of Melodies of Midgar by Pontus Holmgren, the final track of which you will hear as we sign off, which is, what's the final track called? Don't do this.
I don't feel as bad about forgetting the opening ditty
don't do
anymore.
this to me. Help me, mods. I can't remember. It's it's completely gone. It's completely fallen out of my head. I can't remember the name of the track. They're going to tell me.
Oh, no.
It was going so well. It was going so well right to the end, and then I just messed myself
It fell
up.
to the darkness. Nero said it
Hollow
was quite
Skies.
tasty.
Thank you.
It's all your fault.
It's Hollow Skies.
It's all my fault. It's always
All
my
your
fault.
fault.
Sorry.
Everything.
Sorry,
Every
folks.
time.
Sorry, Sean.
I let the team down, but we'll blame it on Sean.
You stop! Don't apologize. I'll give you something to apologize about.
It's Hollow Skies. They're all like typing
You are
desperately.
perfect, Weiss.
Anyway, thank you very much for joining us, folks. I'm going to sign off from the stream now and say goodbye to everyone here in the chat. But thank you very much for joining. If you're watching this live or on replay, thank you very much, and obviously enjoy playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. Take care, folks, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.